Good afternoon and welcome to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Schiller, joining you from high above the iconic trading floor here at the New York Stock Exchange. Well, this week is especially busy at the stock exchange as this iconic institution hosts some of the key figures attending the UN General Assembly here in Manhattan. There's much more unfolding in this building as well, and we're going to cover it all. Over the next hour, we'll dive into some of the headline events happening at the stock exchange, digging deeper into what the UN will be covering this week, including hearing from its associate spokesperson. My colleague Trinity Chavez is also going to join with details about how the New York Stock Exchange is part of the news this week, too. Well, when Argentina's president rang the opening bell yesterday, I spoke with Steve Henke about the country's economy. It's the third biggest in Latin America. Henke was an advisor to Argentina's president, Carlos Menem, in the late 1990s and served as president of Toronto Trust Argentina in Buenos Aires. You won't want to miss what he had to say about the path forward. Later this hour, Citizens Financial Group, which trades here at the stock exchange under the ticker symbol CFG, will celebrate the 10th anniversary of its IPO by ringing the closing bell. We'll deliver those exclusive remarks and coverage from Chair and CEO Bruce von Saun, of course, when we hear from him in the boardroom in a little bit. Well, we continue to have our eye on the market as we always do, and heading into this final hour of trade on this Tuesday, we do see stocks, the S&P setting a new record high today. And as we look to close out the month of September, the major indexes looking at gains of more than 1%. A lot of these gains, of course, buoyed in the past week by the expectation that rates will continue to come down further after we had seen the first rate cut by the Fed last week since the rate cuts, the dramatic rate cuts at the start of the pandemic. Investors certainly hopeful, and we'll see if that does impact stocks into the close. As world leaders descend upon Manhattan for the UN General Assembly over the course of this week, we went straight to the source about what major topics this year's annual event will cover. Here's what Florencia Soto-Nino, associate spokesperson at the UN, told me on Monday.
We call it like a Super Bowl for diplomacy because we have over 195 world leaders descending in Manhattan, coming to headquarters. Over 80 of them will be heads of state, including President Biden, who will speak tomorrow at the General Assembly high-level debate. So it's very exciting. It's an opportunity for leaders to engage in person, something they don't usually do. Everyone in the same building, in the same room, talking about the most pressing issues that we can address. And for the Secretary General, it's kind of like he's the host. He's the one that brings them all together, and he tries to meet with as many of them as possible to have very honest and frank discussions about a lot of issues.
How does the private sector tie in for us based here now at the New York Stock Exchange?
Well, it's really interesting because you would think that the General Assembly week and the UN week in general is only for governments, but more and more we have been involving the private sector, also civil society and youth, because they're important pieces in finding solutions for global challenges, right? So for example, we have what we call a global compact, which is a group of companies that have signed on to follow the sustainability principles, for example. And so they will be having their own summit here in New York. And so it's just a great mix of people. You will be walking down the corridors of the UN and you will see presidents, prime ministers, but also CEOs and activists and young people. So it's really very exciting.
Certainly a lot in store. Talk to me more about the key issues that you anticipate to take center stage at this year's session.
Well, as you know, the world right now is in a lot of turmoil. We have a lot of things happening, right? So the conflicts all around the world obviously are going to take center stage, and I'm talking about Ukraine, the Middle East, Sudan, Myanmar. These are all issues that are very pressing. Haiti as well, that the global community wants desperately to find solutions to. But also we have other issues that are sort of like the global commons, the sort of challenges that everybody faces, and we also need global solutions for that. That is climate change. Obviously, there's a high-level event on rising sea levels. And for example, artificial intelligence is also another global challenge that leaders are keen to discuss. So all of these, there's also going to be an event on Afghanistan and inclusion of women in society. So these are all like topics that we will be discussing.
For anyone based here in Manhattan, we all know when the UN General Assembly is in session, it's a very busy and exciting time, certainly for Manhattan and really the entire world. I saw some leaders making their way, in fact, to the city over the weekend, and that was for the Summit of the Future. What is that? How does that tie into the UN?
Well, first, before talking about the Summit of the Future, I want to apologize on behalf of the UN to all New Yorkers, because we know that this is the week where traffic becomes really unbearable, and I also want to thank the New York authorities and NYPD and everyone that makes it happen, because really our cooperation with them is year-round, but it's even more intense during this week. So thank you for your patience. And so the Summit of the Future, we actually started a little bit early this year. This is the third day of the Summit of the Future. And it's quite interesting. It stands out from other General Assembly high-level debate sessions, because this is an event that the Secretary General convened, because he said, this is something very interesting that he said. He said, we are not fit to solve the problems of our grandchildren with the systems that were built by our grandparents. So he really wanted this summit to talk about all the problems, the new kind of problems that have come up since the UN was created, right, over 80 years ago. So these problems are things that are new and that we don't yet have the tools. We kind of know what we need to do, but we don't know how. So the Summit of the Future sought to address how are we going to tackle pandemics, the rise of artificial intelligence, autonomous weapons, climate change, and obviously other things that are quite important, such as Security Council reform. When the UN was created, it was the main powers after the Second World War that decided who would get permanent seats at the council. And for example, Africa is not represented, it's never been represented. And so this is a step towards saying, this needs to change. There needs to be a reform in the way we do things. And thankfully, yesterday, countries agreed on the Pact for the Future, and today is the last day. And so it's a great way to kickstart the week.
What does that pact entail? What are the takeaways from the Summit of the Future?
There are actually quite a few. There's about over 50 concrete actions that countries agreed to take. But I mentioned a few of them. So one of them is start talking about Security Council reform, which is very important. Two, forming a global body for governance of artificial intelligence. In terms of security, also agreeing on using autonomous weapons and regulating that. How is that going to happen? In the terms of online space, addressing misinformation, addressing access for everyone, but also protecting children, for example, from harmful things on the internet. These are new issues, right? We were not dealing with this a few decades ago. In terms of climate, I think it's very tied to finance, in the sense that a lot of the countries that don't contribute to climate change, that really have very little emissions, are the ones that are the most vulnerable, like Pacific Islands, islands in the Caribbean, small countries that are really feeling the impacts of climate change and are very vulnerable, and they need money. They need access to finance to adapt, to increase their resilience, to mitigate all the damages that climate change is causing on their economies. And it's not only the islands, it's drought in Africa and the global heat in many parts of the world, including here in the United States.
Well, the UN General Assembly is situated in Midtown Manhattan on the east side. The New York Stock Exchange down here in Lower Manhattan is an iconic landmark that world leaders will visit. So to understand how it's happening here, I want to bring in my colleague, Trinity Chavez, who joins me now on another balcony overseeing the trading floor. Trinity, what's going to be happening this week here at the exchange during the UN General Assembly?
Well, Kristen, it has been a very busy week so far here at the NYSE. Several cabinet ministers and heads of state from around the world will be on hand to ring the bell and deliver their messages, including President of the Argentine Republic, Javier Milei, who was here on Monday, President of the Republic of South Africa, who we heard in the boardroom yesterday, Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the European Commission, as well as the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen. Climate Capital is also another big event that is a major storyline coming out of the NYSE. The Honorable Jennifer Granholm, U.S. Secretary of Energy, was here this morning to highlight how the Investing in America agenda will generate $16 billion to boost the U.S. battery supply chain and create good-paying union jobs, strengthening economic competitiveness. And since the Inflation Reduction Act passed in 2022, clean energy investments have surged by nearly $500 billion, which is nearly 71% of an increase. She also spoke about how over 800 new or expanded clean energy factories have been announced under the Biden-Harris administration, with record oil, gas, and clean energy production benefiting consumers, businesses, and manufacturing capacity across the country. Kristen?
Trinity, while Argentina's President Javier Milei, as you referenced, rang the opening bell on Monday to kick off the UN General Assembly week here in Manhattan, we also heard from South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa in the boardroom yesterday before celebrating the closing bell also at the stock exchange. We were both in attendance at that event. Tell our viewers the stock exchange's connection to South Africa.
Yeah, well, the New York Stock Exchange has a notable connection to South Africa, with several South African companies listed on the exchange, spanning industries like mining, technology, and finance, of a total market cap of over $40 trillion. And these listings allow South African businesses to access global capital markets, enhancing their visibility and investment opportunities. Then the NYSE also helps facilitate trade and investment between South Africa and the U.S., contributing to the economic ties between the two nations. And I'll be covering more of the UNGA coverage that we have coming out of the NYSE more extensively this week, so we can have it on the show on NYSE TV Live, and we'll talk about it here, Kristen.
All right, Trinity Chavez, live for us above the trading floor as well. Trinity, thank you. Well, we do have plenty more to cover when it comes to the UN General Assembly and the stock exchange after this quick commercial break.
Sila Realty Trust is a REIT, and it's the only net lease REIT that invests exclusively in the healthcare sector of real estate.
So exciting morning here at the New York Stock Exchange. You listed on the NYSE, rang the opening bell, and you listed via a direct listing versus an IPO. So tell me, why go the route of a direct listing?
We went the route of direct listing because we did not need the capital to raise through a traditional IPO. Our leverage is very low. We have an opportunity to expand the company, grow our balance sheet, further diversify our portfolio with the capital that we already have on hand. In addition, by listing the shares, we give an opportunity to our existing shareholders to seek liquidity should they choose, and also for new buyers to buy our shares at what we think is probably an attractive entry point.
Now, given Sila's attractive balance sheet, what are your acquisition plans?
We anticipate expanding our balance sheet and our enterprise value by approximately 10 to 15% per year. So really that means us acquiring about $300 million of real estate over the next 12 to 18 months.
Now, tell me briefly about Sila's track record of value creation.
We have a strong track record and history of value creation really over the last 10 to 14 years since our company's inception. And we've often been first in transparency with respect to disclosures, our supplemental packages, special distributions to our stockholders, and really making ourselves available to our stockholders.
Now, talk to me about your board of directors.
We did a board refresh over the last 3 years, and we really brought in best-in-class public company directors from diverse backgrounds. So we have a former healthcare CEO, a former securities investor in the REIT space, financial.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Scholler. Well, prior to ringing yesterday's opening bell, President Milei spoke with CEOs, executives, and global investors. And one such executive was Telecom Argentina CEO Ricardo Nobile. Well, the firm, which trades here at the stock exchange with the ticker symbol TEO, will be ringing the closing bell tomorrow on Wednesday during the UN General Assembly to celebrate the 30th anniversary of that company's listing. Trinity Chavez spoke with him on the trading floor.
It's unbelievable. We just listened to the president of Argentina, that he did a terrific speech. So it's unbelievable. I mean, Argentina is right now in the right path, and I think we are very optimistic about the near future. And Telecom is there. So we are one of the 20 companies listed here in the US. So we are very proud of that.
And you know, Telecom Argentina will be celebrating 30 years this Wednesday. I mean, talk to me about the significance in that, and how meaningful is this for you?
It's a crucial moment for the company. We've been able to show resilience to all things that happened in Argentina in the recent months, and we are doing really well, and we are prepared for the next to come.
Speaking of the next to come, can you talk to me about what some of the key priorities are for you in the near term and then for the long term as well?
Okay. Always the customer. I mean, we are trying to follow the customer in their digital economy, digital way of living. So beyond connectivity, we are basically a connectivity company, but we're trying to move forward into more than connectivity. We are creating new digital platforms, entertainment platforms, IoT platforms, and we just initiated in fintech. We launched our fintech a few years ago, so we are trying to be there for them.
And you know, talking about Telecom Argentina's success, what are some of the biggest storylines that determine that? Say in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay, connectivity, we are deploying 5G. That's the way of going and helping our customers to move on with their best connectivity in Argentina. We are also launching new services in Paraguay and Uruguay. We are trying to become regional. So it's a starting point. And all the platforms that we are creating, I mean, entertainment, the fintech is moving and growing a lot. We are more than 3 million customers already in our fintech, and we are pursuing 6 million in the near future. So it's very, very challenging.
It wasn't just executives from Argentina-based companies that attended yesterday's morning festivities. I spoke with Joachim Stassen, CEO of the London-based Rio Tinto, which also trades here at the stock exchange. The ticker is RIO, Rio for short. And here's what he told me about how his company's business is relevant in Argentina.
We've been in Argentina for many years, then we went out, and now we've done a re-entry just 2.5 years ago, and we're investing in building a lithium mine in Argentina. We're also in copper, and we see great prospects in Argentina.
Of course, with the RIGI law, there are incentives for investing in Argentina. How is that impacting your company and the way that you're rolling out business there?
It's absolutely crucial. What we did, we went in, bought a project, learned a lot about the technology. We are now on top of the technology, have built a workforce in Argentina, great workforce, but we need to make sure that it makes sense to invest. And when we invest, we don't invest for the next 5 years, we invest for the next 50 years. And this new law is basically giving much more assurance for investments, that you can assure that you are safe and you know what the fiscal regime will be, etc. So we feel much more comfortable. So far, over the last 2 years, we have invested at $1.5 billion, and we will be producing first lithium by the end of this year, and at the same time probably build a much bigger plant as well for another $2 billion. So it's a big gambit for us.
Can you further quantify the growth plans specifically in Argentina over the next 12 months, 3 to 5 years?
So we will be producing, as I said, in December, but only 3,000 tons lithium a year, and we will be seeking a much bigger plant. We haven't completely finalized it, but I expect us to take an investment decision in December, and that means that we will invest a lot over the next few years and see the lithium production ramping up significantly. the prosperity of Argentina for producing both lithium and copper is enormous. There hasn't been a lot in the past for various reasons, but now where the government is putting in place the right structures, where you feel comfortable as a foreigner to invest, you'll probably start seeing more investments going into Argentina.
You, of course, run a business worth more than $100 billion based on market cap, really around the world, a multinational company. What is the state of business on the global scale?
The state of business is actually quite good. The world is growing. Yes, there are a number of difficult issues in the world, geopolitically, wars, etc. But the world is growing, and we still experience good demand for our main products, such as iron ore, copper, and aluminium.
If we bring it back to the U.S., a recent press release by Uranium Energy said that Rio is selling its Wyoming assets to Uranium Energy. What was behind that?
It's a very small asset, and we have never taken anything into productions, and others seems to be a better owner of that, so we are very comfortable with that. But let me just make sure, we don't want to invest less in the U.S., we want to invest more in the U.S. We are a major copper producer in the U.S., and we have an amazing project in Arizona, Resolution, that could produce, if we develop it, 25% of the copper needs of the whole U.S. So we see great prospects here. We also are a producer of boron in California. So it's a great business, and we want to grow it here in the U.S. This little divestment is just part of cleaning up your portfolio.
We heard from another company earlier this week, Anglo Gold Ashanti. That's a gold mining firm, also trading on the stock exchange, ticker symbol AU. And my colleague Trinity Chavez spoke with the CFO, Jillian Duran, about how meaningful it was to be at the exchange and listen to the remarks from Argentina's president on Monday.
It's fantastic. Anglo Gold Ashanti is the second largest gold producer based here in the US. And we have an operation very important to us in Argentina. So really great to be here to hear from President Milei. And always the atmosphere here is always fantastic as well. So really good.
What would you say are some of your key priorities for Anglo Gold Ashanti for the near term and the long term?
So our first priority is safety, making sure our 30,000 people go home safely after every shift, every day. We've had a great year so far this year. Our stock is up more than 50%, better than the peers, and also outperforming gold price. So we really want to build on that momentum in the short term, continue to really optimize our cost base, take advantage of the significantly high gold price we're experiencing right now, and bring as much as we can back to our shareholders.
You know, like you said, your stock price is up more than 50%. You've had quite a lot of momentum recently. So how are you going to continue this momentum? And what would you say are the major storylines that could determine the growth of your company?
So two things. In the near term, last week we announced a deal to buy a London-listed gold miner, Centamin. They own the largest gold mine in Egypt, and hopefully that deal will close before the end of this year and allows us to add 500,000 ounces of gold to our portfolio with lower cost base and better margins, essentially. So we're really looking forward to closing that deal in the near term. And then in the long term, we, Anglo Gold Ashanti, discovered the largest gold deposit in the US in a decade last year. 16 million ounces of gold resource in Nevada, just north of Las Vegas. And that will allow us to continue to maintain and grow the size of our portfolio into the long term.
A very busy week here at the Stock Exchange, and we'll have more coverage surrounding the UN General Assembly and the Stock Exchange right after this break. Stay with us.
Empowering a world of better business. That's the mission of Epicor, and it recently announced $1 billion in ARR. I have the CEO and CFO here to talk all about it.
When a business buys our software, we're committed to running their business on a daily basis, which is a commitment we take very seriously. We're there to empower the essential workers that power that global supply chain.
Joe, what would you say contributed to the rapid growth of $1 billion ARR?
Quote that really resonates with me is, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome," as the late great Charlie Munger famously stated. And for us, what did that mean? The rare air we've accomplished with $1 billion of ARR required a company-wide North Star, and that North Star was centered around being a best-in-class supply chain cloud-first software company. And in order to do that, our products had to be great. So over the last 6 years, we've invested over $1 billion to advance our cloud-based capabilities. And I think it's certainly, by the fact we're here today, is a testament that those investments have paid off.
How do you keep the momentum to continue to expand to new markets?
We will double down on that industry focus. I think the other thing is there's an underserved market in the space we compete in, and that's the essential worker. As companies take a look at onshoring and reshoring and having to be productive enough to compete and win, they really need to empower those essential workers. So as far as industry expertise within manufacturing, distribution, and retail, we'll continue to focus there, and we'll continue to invest heavily in the cloud.
So as I think about our ARR growth, it's really through 4 complementary vectors. Number 1 is acquiring new customers. Number 2 is the ability to renew those customers. 3 is pricing uplifts, and 4 is expanding in our existing base. And we've done a lot of analysis here, and we believe we're best in class across all those metrics. And that's really a testament to the essential nature of our products that Steve talked about. But most importantly, what we're focused on is the road ahead, $1 billion.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Schuller here above the trading floor. Well, last week, Argentina's President Milei presented the 2025 budget to Congress, predicting robust economic growth and sticking to a zero fiscal deficit. In that presentation, President Milei said, quote, "The cornerstone of this budget is the first truth of macroeconomics, a truth that for many years has been neglected in Argentina, that of zero deficit. Managing means cleaning up the balance sheet, deactivating the debt bomb that we inherited," end quote. I spoke to Steve Hanke, professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University and advisor to Argentina's president, Carlos Menem, in the late 1990s about current President Milei and his economic strategy. Take a look.
What's going on in Argentina is a big reform program is underway with President Milei, trying to basically shrink the state and put things on the right track. Now, the big problem with the reforms, I think, is that he hasn't introduced what he campaigned on, and that was a promise to get rid of the central bank, something that actually I first recommended in print in the Wall Street Journal way back in 1991. And also get rid of the peso and put both the central bank and the peso in a museum someplace. So he hasn't done that, and that puts his whole program, I think, at risk. The sustainability of that program is kind of up in the air a little bit because the courts could block his moves. That's one thing. The Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, they could block his moves and have tried to do so. And also the unions. When you start shrinking the state, you've got powerful unions, public sector employees that are in unions, and you're giving them a pink slip. They tend to get agitated and get out in the street. So we have all those risks. And by the way, next year in October, there will be elections in which half of the Chamber of Deputies are up for re-election and a third of the Senate. So he's facing a lot of headwinds in trying to shrink the state and basically change the whole system that's been in place in Argentina since World War II.
How dramatically different would that make the Argentinian economy to the average person and perhaps a tourist visiting?
Let's first talk about the key thing, and the Achilles heel is always inflation. And with the program that they have, it's basically an IMF program. And these IMF programs tend to start more fires than they do putting out fires. And so the problem is getting the money supply down, the money supply growth down, which will lead eventually to getting inflation down. But the problem is the money supply on a year-over-year basis is growing at 142% per year, and it should be growing. If they want to hit their inflation target of 5%, it should be growing at about 10%. It's growing at 142%. Inflation is currently year over year growing at 237%.
Wow. So let's talk more about that, because between inflation and interest rates and central bankers, notably Fed Chair Jerome Powell here in America, really when it comes to business, when it comes to the stock market performance and other markets and exchanges as well, so much of the inflation story does revolve around the central bank and the level of interest rates. What can you tell us about where rates stand in Argentina and how inflation plays a part in that?
Interest rates follow inflation rates. So if the inflation rate comes down, interest rates are going to come down. That's the story. And at present, as I said, the inflation rate is actually very high, 237% year over year. But if you look at it on a 6-month annualized basis, 104%. And if you look at it on a 3-month annualized basis, it's 65%. So it's slowing down. It's very high. It's slowing down. And by the way, I just measured it today. I measure it every day, inflation in Argentina. My measure is 71% today. So the thing is slowing down, and interest rates, as a result of that, if it continues, interest rates will come down.
If I could, how is that impacting business in Argentina, such dramatic inflation that we've seen?
If inflation comes down, it's obviously a very big positive. And that's the name of the game in Argentina. To maintain credibility and popularity, inflation has to come down. And if Malay would have dollarized, which by the way, I've done 2 dollarizations, one in Ecuador in 2001 and one in Montenegro in 1999, and the inflation gets crushed immediately. So if he would have dollarized when he came into office, inflation would be going down close to the level of the inflation target of 5% in Argentina. It would eventually go down to roughly what it is in the United States if they had gotten rid of the peso. So that I think was that is basically his big problem. Inflation, how to get it down and control it. I think with the program they have right now, it is going in the right direction, but the question is, how sustainable is it?
Steve, what do you think should come out of Argentina's President Javier Milei's visit to New York City this week amid the UN General Assembly? I should say New York City and the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, I think it's a positive visit. I mean, he'll be showered with pats on the back for maintaining his initial popularity and starting these much needed reform programs. So I think and the market is performing well in Argentina.
After the break, we'll shift the focus to U.S.-based financial firms celebrating a significant milestone here at the stock exchange. Stick around.
The Greenbrier Companies it's a little bit confusing based on our name, but we are one of the world's largest builders of rail cars, freight rail cars. We also lease rail cars. We maintain rail cars. We have operations across the United States, in Mexico, Poland, Romania, Brazil. So we are a huge freight rail car provider across the world.
Now, Lori, you just rang the opening bell this morning. You are celebrating 30 years since your IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, you've been with the Greenbrier Companies for nearly as long. Now, tell me, what have been some of the biggest changes in the rail industry that you've seen?
It's a great question, because on some counts, it feels like nothing ever changes. But then when you reflect back on it, yes, I've been with Greenbrier for 29 years. And I think back on it, we're actually celebrating the 40th anniversary of pioneering the intermodal rail car, which is where, for your viewers, right? So that's where you see a container stacked 2 on top of each other going down the rail. So that is where It's driven by consumer spending and consumer demand. So that's a big thing. We've also recently invented a high-strength steel gondola, which supports infrastructure building, and Multi-Max Plus, which is a rail car that transports light vehicles as well as heavier duty vehicles. So a lot of innovation that's going on that I've seen over my 29 years with Greenbrier.
Now, Laura, give me a fun fact about freight rail.
Oh, a fun fact about rail, and it ties into what I was talking about with automotive, is most of your viewers probably took some sort of car to get to work today. Well, so 75% of the cars in North America move via rail. So people don't think about that. I think quite honestly, a lot of times we as individuals and consumers, we don't think about where stuff comes from that we're buying on the shelves of the stores that we go to.
Welcome everyone tuning into coverage of this afternoon's closing bell. I'm Kristen Scholler, joining you high above the iconic trading floor at the stock exchange. In about 25 minutes, Citizens Financial Group, which trades here at the stock exchange with the ticker symbol CFG, will ring the closing bell as it celebrates its 10th listing anniversary. Here's what we have on tap. Well, first up, last week's interest rate cut was significant for Americans, especially affecting banks and lenders. And so Intercontinental Exchange's resident expert, Andy Walden, will join me to discuss what it means for mortgages. And we'll take you to the boardroom for those exclusive remarks and coverage of what we hear from Citizens Financial Group Chair and CEO Bruce von Saun. As we get closer to ringing the closing bell, we'll speak with members of Citizens' executive team about the importance of today and what is on tap, what is ahead for the company. Well, one message that Citizens has been hammering home is its development since it listed on the stock exchange in 2014. In the past decade, Citizens says that it's seen its market cap rise by nearly 50%, and the bank adding it's seen 67% asset growth since that listing. Currently has $176 billion in deposits. The company's expanded its physical footprint as well, with 18,000 employees deployed across all 50 U.S. states. With the Federal Reserve last week cutting interest rates or borrowing costs for the first time since the start of the pandemic, all eyes are on what it means for the housing market. Joining me now is Andy Walden, Intercontinental Exchange resident expert, the VP of Enterprise Research. Andy, always great to have you. And after we saw that 0.5 percentage point cut last week by the Fed, where does that leave mortgage rates?
And really a lot of the movement in mortgage rates actually came, as it usually does, in anticipation of what the Fed was about to do. So throughout August and September, we saw a full 0.5% decline in mortgage rates. They got all the way into the low 6% range leading into that Fed rate decision. They've trended modestly higher over the last couple of days as the market has digested what that means and what's to come here. But as of yesterday, we're sitting at 6.14% according to our ICE 30-year conforming fixed rate index. So some of the best mortgage rates that we've seen over the last 18 months plus out there in the market.
Andy, we are awaiting those remarks in the boardroom by Citizens Financial Group. But before we get to that, I want to ask you if we have any sort of indication as to where rates might be heading from here based on ICE's data.
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the best places to look there on the ICE side is into our futures index, right? That ICE 30-year fixed rate future of where mortgage rates are expected to be. Great way for lenders to hedge their pipelines out there in the market. Great way for folks like us to kind of understand what's priced into the market right now as well. And when you translate that index into what that means for 30-year mortgage rates, they say, by March of next year in the high 5% range, 5 7/8 is where they're trending right now. So based on that outlook, low 6s right now trend, and we start to see some interest rates in the high 5s, maybe late this year, early next year, and then in the 5 7/8 range by the time we get ready for the 2025 spring home buying season.
What does this mean for home buyers?
It's a great question, right? There's two different ways to look at this. One is for existing homeowners and what that means for refinance potential. The other is for potential home buyers and what this means for home affordability. For folks that have taken out their mortgages recently over the last couple of years, 2 out of 5 of those folks that have recently taken out mortgages are now in the money for a refinance, right? This is kind of what they've been waiting for since they took those mortgages out. The average high credit quality borrower there could save about $300 a month from their existing mortgage payment. And so you're seeing 3 times the refinance incentive that we saw a couple of months ago out there in the market, and more refinance incentive than we've seen really since the Fed started pushing rates higher in 2022. And when you look at the home affordability landscape, we kind of snuck into some stronger levels of affordability there as well. In fact, the housing market, the most affordable that it's been since February 2023. You compare shopping out there today to where we were kind of in May in the heat of the home buying season this year, you could save about 10% or about $240 less in terms of monthly mortgage payments to buy that average priced home today compared to back where we were in May. So a little bit of increased incentive for folks to go out there and shop, and you're seeing demand kind of creep up a little bit as interest rates have come down as well.
Andy, we so appreciate it. Andy Walden, VP of Enterprise Research, joining us from Intercontinental Exchange. Of course, as we focus on interest rates, we did see the Fed cut interest rates by 0.5 percentage point last week. We anticipate another 0.5 percentage point rate cut before year end. Let's take a listen at the boardroom.
Some of you were with me back at the outset 10 years ago, and others have came along during the journey, but we're all focused on one objective, which is building a great bank. And so happy that you're here. If I go back to when I joined Citizens 11 years ago, it was a tall ask to divest of the RBS stake in Citizens within 3 years. There was quite a lot of fixing to do, and the IPO market was not really open. There weren't a lot of deals getting done. But anyway, we went after it with a very consistent strategy. I focused on making sure we got the right leadership team in place. We built a board. Thank you for some of my board members for being here today. And then we set out a vision as to what we thought would define Citizens. What did we want to be when we grew up? What kind of top performing bank? What would define our success? And so we laid all that out, and then we got to work. We started to actually attract talent into the organization. We worked on the foundations. We made sure that we were building out our technology, our risk management, our financial discipline, get that foundation in place, and then start working on our businesses. We had opportunities to grow the balance sheet back, and so we had to figure out where could we get some good, attractive consumer loan growth. We came up under Brendan's leadership with the Apple iPhone upgrade program, which led into Citizens Pay. We thought about student loan refinancing. We pivoted that business dramatically to be about advice and turned those branches into advice centers as opposed to transaction centers. We focused on commercial, building out a full product capabilities, going after kind of the right industry verticals, going after sponsors, making sure we could do a good job as more and more of the ownership in corporate America was going to private equity ownership, that we had to be really strong there. And we also needed to get around the rest of the country and opened up offices in Atlanta and then in Texas and in California. So a lot of investment there. And then, once we had the fundamentals built out, we decided we could start doing some acquisitions. So I'm just giving you my quick synopsis of the journey. But, the first ones we did were baby steps. We bought an M&A boutique. We bought you guys, Rick Klarfeld, and bought a mortgage business. But then we stepped up to the plate. We always had a desire to be here in New York City. So we did our so-called 1-2 punch with HSBC's East Coast branches, and then followed by Investors Bank, filled that so-called hole in the donut. We've had great success with that, thanks to the team here, Nuno, Rebecca. We put some really great people to make a go of it in New York, and the old saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. We took a big bet on ourselves. We had confidence that we could take 2 franchises that were in need of some TLC and go into the belly of the beast and be successful. And so far, we've had really significant success. That kind of emboldened us when there was some turmoil in the landscape back in 23, and some West Coast banks were failing, made a play for all of First Republic. It turns out, there were some real great talent that wasn't going to fit in the J.P. Morgan model. They picked Citizens as the place where they could recreate the build-out of the premier private bank and private wealth business. And so I see some of you here from from the old First Republic, and appreciate your efforts. I think we're off to a tremendous start in that as well. So when I think of like where are we now, I'd like to say our strategy boils down to kind of a three-pronged approach where we have a transformed consumer bank, we have the best positioned commercial bank, and then we have the aspiring best private bank and private wealth bank in the country. So really made a lot of progress. Never be complacent. While we've come a long way, there's still lots more to do to keep upping our game. The bar is always going higher, but anyway, I feel we're really positioned well for future success. It's going to take continued hard work and focus and discipline, but we have that in our DNA, so I feel really good about our future. It's been a privilege to lead the organization, and I feel really blessed to have the chance to interact and work with each of you. And I look forward to an exciting next 10 years to complete our transformation to being really, truly the most respected and top-performing regional bank. So with that, thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to getting down and ringing that bell.
Thank you, Bruce. So we have a lot of traditions built up over a couple centuries. The most notable one, of course, is what we'll do at 4 p.m. when we ring the bell and bang the gavel to close the markets. But Bruce, we also have a tradition of providing or presenting our bell ringer with a medallion. So this one is struck for you. In front of this medallion is the facade of the exchange, 6 pillars that symbolize free markets all over the world. And on the reverse side is the buttonwood tree, where traders began trading back in 1792. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you so much. For everyone else, we will not let you leave empty-handed. On the way out of the room, there'll be a coin my colleague will be holding, or they'll be in the bowl. Please take one for yourself, just a small token of our appreciation. All right, we are ready to do this and go down to the floor and ring the bell. I'm going to turn the NYSE TV live broadcast over to my colleague, Kristen Scholler. Let's head on down. Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, thanks to Chris Taylor, of course, Global Head of Listings here at the New York Stock Exchange. We were just hearing from Citizens Financial Group Chair and CEO Bruce von Saun. This company worth more than $18 billion in market cap, and of course, a relevant company here to celebrate its 10-year IPO here at the New York Stock Exchange. We'll see Bruce and his team make their way down to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, prepare to ring that closing bell, and we'll be speaking with other executives, other members of the C-suite at Citizens Financial Group a little bit later from the floor. Now, of course, when it comes to banks, interest rates are in keen focus, and that's after the Fed did decide to cut rates last week by 0.5 percentage point. By the end of this year, we anticipate that rates will have decreased in total by a full percentage point, and then another expected full percentage point decrease in rates once we get to 2025. So for lenders, that is something that will certainly inform their business, and certainly for customers, something that will impact the rate that you get on a credit card, your mortgage rate, even perhaps the rate potentially on a student loan. Well, of course, as we await to see the executive suite from Citizens Financial Group make their way down to the stock exchange, I do believe my colleague Trinity Chavez is joining me from the other side. Let's take a quick look at this video.
It's a time of big changes at Citizens Bank. Rhode Island's largest financial firm is on the road to independence from its British parent company, Royal Bank of Scotland, following a $3 billion Wall Street IPO in September.
There was some skepticism in the market about our IPO. There really wasn't an instance where a foreign-owned bank had been successful in the United States. The IPO market was pretty closed at that point in time. This was an ambitious undertaking with no historical precedent. I'd say we had quite a good run here in transforming the bank. Part of that starts at the top with talent. We put a lot of great leaders in place and invested in our people. We kept a very strong focus on our customer and that we were going to serve customers better than peers. We would bring the whole enterprise to deliver value as a thought leader. Those are some of the real foundation blocks for our success.
When you hear analysts talk about Citizens today, one of my favorite headlines was that Citizens is a story with legs. Now, I like that headline but I might convert it to something like a story with rocket fuel. We have a transformed consumer bank. We have one of the best positioned commercial banks in the United States. We just launched one of the most exciting private banks in the United States, and that gives us the rocket fuel to achieve our mission.
Our theory was that New England, the Mid-Atlantic, had relatively low GDP growth and relatively low company formation, so we wanted to go to higher growth parts of the country. We added Atlanta, which covered the entirety of the Southeast. Then we added Texas, and then we added California. And about halfway through the journey, we bought 2 large companies in New York City.
There are so many differences to the consumer bank over the last 10 years, most notably a transformed customer experience, a growing and thriving customer base, and an innovation mindset.
We're investing in data and analytics so we understand our customers better and we're able to deliver to them solutions at all levels of their needs.
I have a company that I started about 15 years ago with my wife. We own hundreds of restaurants across a bunch of states. Coming into this deal, I really viewed the banking relationships as more of a commodity than anything else. Looking back now 6 years, I was definitely wrong. This is a relationship business.
Colleague refers to really a partner. We're all part of the same team. The success that we've had belongs to everybody. It truly has been a team effort.
We're going to work hard, but we're going to have fun at the same time. We're going to make sure that colleagues feel like they're engaged, that they have opportunities for growth, and that they can support each other along the way.
I have been fortunate enough to make lifelong friends here.
Volunteerism is a core part of who we are. It's something that predated the IPO. There was a commitment to the community that was very authentic.
We've had over 30 years of a relationship with Citizens. The partnership has allowed us to be able to do significant things in terms of job training and support for small businesses.
I think Citizens has a really bright future ahead. Over the next 10 years, we'll build upon the things that we have in place today. What we're talking about is a transformed consumer bank, a best positioned commercial bank, and aspiring to be the best bank-owned wealth management platform.
As I look forward to the next 10 years, I see an organization that is going to continue to grow and prosper, and at the core will be our colleagues.
There's a bit of an it factor with our colleagues walking around the place. The company is more innovative, and we're winning.
I think it's great to view banking as a noble profession. Let's try to help our customers get to the next level. Let's challenge our employees to be able to do more and have an even bigger impact at the company. Let's help our communities be an even better place to live, work, and play. Let's help our shareholders get a good return on their investment. I think we're going to continue to see that, and that'll help propel us in the coming years.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler, joined by Trinity Chavez down here on the floor of the Stock Exchange. Trinity, we are seeing the crowd pile in, getting ready for the closing bell, and members of the executive team down here on the floor.
Actually, they're gathering right now underneath the bell podium. I'm sure we're going to get images of that just very shortly. They're just signing the distinguished guest book as they get ready to close the U.S. equity markets for the day and end trading.
That's right.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of green on the screen, Kristen. Looks like it's going to end on a high note.
The S&P 500, you're right, Trinity. You're rocking the green.
We like green
yes.
here at the New York Stock Exchange, especially when it's on the big board.
The S&P in the green as well. That index touching a record high in today's session. Of course, a lot of that on the back of the Fed cutting interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. Yep. We've been talking about this all show long, what it means for banks, what it means for consumers, and of course, covering it live down here on the floor of the Stock Exchange. Yep. We're going to have great insight, in fact, coming up because Citizens Chief Financial Officer John Woods is going to join our program. And of course, this is to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of its IPO.
And you know, this is just one of the many events that are taking place here at the New York Stock Exchange. As we said, we were kicking off UNGA week here at the exchange, where we have many ministers from around the world, heads of state, world leaders having closed-door meetings where they're really deciding what the future of our world economy looks like.
Exactly. And so, of course, economic justice very much a part of that, and Citizens, with its presence here in the Northeast and partnerships with other major franchises that we've hosted here at the New York Stock Exchange, like the New York Giants, which just celebrated 100 years,
100 years
as a franchise. Very important. Certainly a touch point that I'm sure many of our viewers have had over the course of their own personal finance journey.
Absolutely. And I think that they're right now gathering, the whole executive team is, again, they're underneath the bell podium, which we're showing, I'm sure. They're going to make their way up what I like to call the secret staircase, Kristen, where they're going to make their way up to that bell podium. I'm getting word right now. Yeah, I'm getting word right now that we can actually go a little bit closer to give you guys a little preview of the crowd gathering right in front of CNBC Sept right here. And again, there is the CEO, John Woods, speaking to members of his executive team as we get ready to finish trading for the day.
That's
and as we
right.
said, a lot of green here. We're rocking the green for Citizens today and their whole team.
That's right. So the CFO, John Woods, of course, it appears behind us right now. There's the executive team rocking the green as well. Of course, this is a publicly traded company listed here on the stock exchange for our viewers with the ticker symbol CFG, Citizens Financial Group. And it is an important day for that company.
Yeah, celebrating 10 years. And again, this is just actually, let's bring them on right now so we can speak with them. Kristen, I believe you're up first.
Okay, great. John Woods. John Woods, is this you? John, welcome to the show. John Woods, of course, is the Chief Financial Officer of Citizens Financial Group. John, congratulations. 10 years as a listed company here at the stock exchange.
Yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it's here at the financial capital of the world. You can just feel the energy here, and it's really special. I mean, this is the largest bank IPO in history, and 10 years on, it's just incredible what we've been able to accomplish.
I'd like to hear a bit about the past 10 years and what's in store in the next 10 years from your perspective as the CFO.
Yeah, I would say that over the next 10 years, we are going to be one of the coolest places in banking. I mean, we have an advice-driven platform which serves customers. We've got unbelievable tailwinds that are all starting to converge. And this is probably one of the most interesting portfolios or strategic initiatives that you're going to find in banking, whether it's in the commercial side of things, where we're capturing private capital, and we saw that, we were ahead of the curve and saw that coming, whether it's in consumer, or in the private banking space, where we just did a huge opportunistic investment last year. Extremely cool, very excited about the future.
John Woods, he's the Chief Financial Officer here at Citizens. John, we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you on that Bell podium. I do want to bring in my colleague, Trinity Chavez, who has more of our coverage. John, we'll step to the side here. I'll let you
Let's go, John.
get on tap.
We're actually going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
Well, in fact, I go to the US several times a year, especially to Washington, D.C. for the Bretton Woods institutions. You know, we have a spring meeting, autumn meeting. Now, this time I had a private journey, and so I benefited from being in New York to also visit the New York Stock Exchange. And this is the 1st of August, which is the National Day of Switzerland. So I will celebrate that with the Swiss community here down in Manhattan.
Let's talk about Switzerland's economy. You have one of the most successful economies. What are the ingredients?
I think there are several ingredients. You know, institutional ingredients. We have a direct democracy. So, you know, this prevents politics from making too many mistakes because people have the last say. We have about 3 or 4 referendum a year on various topics, and it's always the Swiss people that has the last word. We have a federal state. Like the US, we don't have states, but cantons, 26 cantons. They're very autonomous also. And of course, we have budgetary discipline, fiscal discipline, which is important for the economy. We are financially stable, politically stable, and we have also a system of rule of law that is reliable. I think that these are among the most important ingredients. I could also talk about the educational system, about the successful companies, but I think the institutions are very solid. And as I said, it's our national day today. So this goes back, or Switzerland goes back to 12.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here on the floor of the stock exchange with Trinity Chavez. Trinity, you're in green for Citizens Financial Group.
I tried to represent, and it looks like they are getting situated on the Bell podium.
Yes.
As you mentioned earlier, they're celebrating 10 years. Just one of our many listed companies here at the exchange. Over 2,400 listed companies, over $40 billion in total market cap. And so, you know, we're celebrating them today, and it looks like we're about 10 seconds out from this closing bell. So I think that we should tune into that. What do you think, Kristen?
Let's take a listen. S&P at a record high. I'm Kristen Scholler for NYSE TV Live.
And I'm Trinity Chavez. Thanks for watching.
In life, I'm reminded that it's not about the destination, it is truly about the journey.
My pleasure to greet you today from the center of the U.S. capital markets here at the New York Stock Exchange.
I want to just take a minute and not just talk to the people that are in the room, but I want to speak to the rest of the team around the globe. These are people that made this happen, and I know that there is no way we would be here if it wasn't for you.
Everyone at Flutter is proud to join such a distinguished list of companies on this great stock exchange.
Not many people get to do something big in this world, and we get to do something truly special.
This is such a wonderful place to both look back and look forward. Look how far we have come. I'm so optimistic about what lies ahead. It has been a privilege to be with you.